You are speaking on a panel about harnessing big data towards ESG compliance. So to get started, what's your take on the current banking and financial landscape in terms of their ESG practices, and are firms starting to take more action?
So are firms starting to take more action on ESG and ESG practices? I think absolutely, yep. That's banking as well as the corporates. I think we'll look back and COP26 will have been a really pivotal moment where corporates come in, not just governments and policy, and start to take some ownership of this transition journey, setting themselves targets, promising they're going to hit net zero by 2050 with milestones at 2040 or 2030. So we're now in. We're all now committed to doing this and delivering. The question is how, and how do we get the data, and what can we do with technology today and fintechs to help us get the data and really crack that implementation.
So on that note, there's obviously a certain element towards ESG, but there's also fiscal opportunities as well. It's much cheaper to reuse something multiple times than to start again completely from scratch. Looking at some of the clients and obviously the way you're working yourselves, are there opportunities to be ESG compliant, for want of a better term, that also makes you more fiscally efficient?
So in terms of optimizing the ESG hunt for big data and being sort of fiscally efficient, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. But if we just roll back and look at our client base as an industry, we've got three real types of clients. We've got big sophisticated clients, they know what they need, they want, they've got tons of data. They've got supply chains, but within that supply chain you've got two other bunches of clients. You've got clients who really want to know the bank's going to be with them. They want to know what the bank needs because we've got to report from them, and they want to know how we can help. And then there's millions of SMEs who are the backbone of most economies, who have very little data, very little know-how and very little resource, and they got half a nostril above water coming out of COVID into the energy crisis, tackling inflation. So they're in survival mode, but actually sustainability is part of that survival tactic. We've got a client in Scotland, fantastic, in the waste sector. What they've done is invest in CapEx and completely change their business model. So what they're now doing is they're no longer shoving it all in landfill, costing them a fortune. They've got this wonderful new machine, I can't remember what it's called, but it whips everything, or cyclone something. And what they can now do is recycle all of that waste building material, and they've got a new revenue stream where they're selling it back into the industry. So reduce costs, reduce greenhouse, new revenue stream. So that's a fiscal benefit for the corporate, and using new technologies. So banking has got to lean into those new technologies and make sure that all these startups are going to be producing the sustainable tech, the climate tech, as the solutions for those millions of SMEs, that we scale, fund and finance and connect them to the clients that need to use their products.
Very articulate, thank you, that's excellent there. I want to talk a little bit about fintech bank collaboration. How important is bank fintech collaboration in this case? Are there partnerships that are helping SMEs achieve their sustainability goals?
So if you think about corporates at the moment, the clients are all part of supply chains. A buyer needs to be able to report. They've probably made commitments to report on their scope 3 emissions. So they need carbon footprints, they need ESG scoring. So we're seeing a number of sort of fintechs and startups come up who are providing some of that data, providing tools for the SMEs, aligning themselves with banks to provide that data so that they can participate in not just the supply chain, but that data can be used to enhance their reductions in greenhouse gases as well as they transition as part of that sort of journey.
What kind of initiatives has HSBC put in place to promote sustainability, both within the business itself, but also within your customers?
To promote sustainability internally, first of all, we've got to sort of really get people engaged in training and education. So we need to educate and invest in training all of our frontline, all of our risk folks, so that we're engaged and understand and don't become risk averse, but that we lean in and become risk aware. So training is one initiative. And it's not just training for us, actually. We need to sort of help our clients too. So providing them with insight using big data, proxy sort of scoring, we can see what best practice is and provide that to our client base so that they can then make the necessary changes and accelerate their transition journey as well.
Whenever you think of any place that you've worked at, the first thing you always think of is the people that you were working there with, that it's very touchy-feely to talk about, but that culture. How do you maintain that and change that culture to have that focus towards sustainability within an organisation as vast as HSBC?
So changing cultures and behaviours is the hardest thing that you can do, whether it's a small company or a large company. So that is critical. What you will probably also know is climate change is effectively what's called a wicked systems problem. And behavioural and cultural changes are a nebulous thing as part of those problems, and which makes it even more harder to solve. But what we have to do is to get buy-in at all levels and understanding of what the challenge is, and this is a huge urgent challenge. So again, training, education, get buy-in. You usually have 3 types of people and cultures, so we need to understand what our culture is today. To change a culture, you've got to understand where it is, you've got to shake it up, and then you've got to reset it and freeze the new culture when you have it. So that's how you do it. But you've got to understand that you may have people who are really hungry and ready to go and be mobilized, and there's a generational gap sometimes on the sustainability agenda. There are thousands of people out there raring to go, desperate to be part of the solution, and they can be part of the solution. There are some who are a little bit more skeptical and need persuading. Well, is this going to make sense for our business model, and how does our business model change, and do I really have to change today because it's okay actually, and I'm struggling with all these other things that I'm facing. And then there are what I call the flat earthers, the people who are completely resistant to change. This isn't on my watch, this isn't going to happen now, I can carry on, this will all blow over. So what are the tools that you have to change a culture? You need to understand your audience and apply different tools. That latter group need a bit more stick, and the former group are benefits of sort of carrot. So it's a mixture, but you've got to understand where the culture is today, the problems, shake it up, reset it.